Hi, this is Bruce Himmelblau with Blue Sky Video Productions and YouTube strategist and live stream producer. And today we've got a great guest. Eric Feinendegen is a TEDx speaker. He is a world champion Toastmaster competition finalist twice, maybe even 3 times. Depends on how it goes this year. So great. Let's get into the show. So, hi, Eric. Welcome to the show.
How you doing?
So this is great. You're my first TEDx speaker on this series.
Well, I'm sure, Bruce, that I will not be your last. That is for sure. But thank you for having me. I know we're going to have a lot of fun here.
So you didn't add the DTM to your name. I thought that was necessary, like a MD or DDS.
Well, not quite. You know, when you add the DTM, sometimes it confuses people. It stands for Distinguished Toastmaster, which, and I'll brag a little bit, is the highest educational award that you can achieve in Toastmasters. Less than 1% of Toastmasters achieve it. Now, it did take me a lot longer than normal to get it, right? It took me almost 16 years, but we won't go there. I was busy doing a lot of things. But it's like, you know, once you're a doctor, you're right, always a doctor.
So we actually have a video clip of, it was your latest competition entry. We're just going to show a quick intro to it and then talk about what it takes to be a public speaker. So let's pull this up real quick.
Welcome to Toastmasters International's World Championship of Public Speaking.
A gift from Grammy, Eric Feinendegen.
Without exception, we all have that one special birthday. Can you remember yours? For some, it's Sweet 16. Others, the day that we can drink legally. And yet for others, it's any birthday that ends in a 0. Meaning.
Okay, there we go. So they can watch the rest of that. They just Google Eric Feinendegen 2018 World Championship of Public Speaking.
That is correct. Yep, it's on my website. You can also go to YouTube, just type in what you mentioned. And if you gave me a nice comment and a like, I would not hold it against any of your listeners, Bruce.
So that ran less than a minute. And that included the introduction as well. So in the first 30 seconds, you got to laugh. How important is that to a speech?
Sure, it's critical. And you know, when you compete at that level, Bruce, the difference between winning and losing is so minute as you can imagine. You know, it's the Olympics of public speaking. In preparation for that, I worked with a variety of different coaches. I had a body language coach, a speech coach, a vocal coach, a humor coach, a thinking coach. And my humor coach, a professional comedian, Dobie Maxwell, he drilled into my head. He goes, Eric, you must get a laugh, an audience reaction within the first 10 to 15 seconds. This way, you start the back and forth, the dialogue, right? You get that payoff, and now the dance begins. It's critical. And if you look at one-on-one communication, because, you know, I'm sure, you know, most of your listeners, you know, their goals aren't what mine are, which is to compete, you know, for the World Championship of Public Speaking. But even when you're on a one-on-one, you know, it could be a phone call, just a regular conversation, right? To get payoffs, to get feedback, and that the reactions from your listener is critical.
And so this was designed as a humor speech. At that level, is it overall? Because I know Toastmasters has a comedy section as well as a general competition section. This kind of crosses over, or is it basically you need humor no matter where you are?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll give you some context on the actual contest itself, because it is unique to a lot of people. Toastmasters, they have 4 contests throughout the year. They have an impromptu speaking, an evaluation contest, humorous, and then what you just showed, the international speech contest. That is held every year, and that is worldwide. Approximately 35,000 contestants from around the world enter from 146 countries. So it is huge. When we say it's the Olympics of public speaking, it really is such. And if you want to do well, you know, there's a number of different things that go into that, Bruce. You have to have a universal message. And this is true when we're communicating again on a contest stage, or now that we're speaking to global audiences because of virtual. You have to have that universal message. You have to be able to connect through humor, and you have to be able to share your vulnerability and basically take them on an emotional roller coaster ride, which does include humor. You know, you have to hit the heart, you have to hit the head, and you have to engage them through all their senses. So it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. And if you can impart a message on people and help change their lives, it's all worth it.
So let's talk about the rest of us, the 99%, I guess.
Yes.
I've been doing some public speaking. My style is definitely not like your style. I think more I am a professor. I usually try to train people on doing things like YouTube strategies, going live on video and things like that, and video related. And I find myself actually relying a lot on my PowerPoint, either as a cue to what my next topic is, or else as a crutch in some instances, just so I know where I'm going next. So as far as you go, what is your viewpoint first on live video, actually in the pre-COVID days, presenting with PowerPoint, and then now when things are more virtual?
Sure. Well, a lot of people like to preach death by PowerPoint, and there is some truth to that. However, I'm also in the financial planning world, Bruce, and just like investments, there's not one solution for every individual. So when you bring up PowerPoint, without question, there are scenarios where it's appropriate. And a lot of people think, oh, well, if I use PowerPoint, I have to, have that running throughout my entire speech. Not true. When crafting a speech, whether it's with PowerPoint or without, the question you need to ask yourself is, what's in it for my audience? And if you can use slides, and you mentioned, TEDx, most TEDx presentations do have slides, whether it's, through the Keynote software, PowerPoint, you name it, because if done well, it does add to the presentation. The challenge is when people use PowerPoint and video and technology as that crutch. So the point for this is you are your own best visual message. I can honestly tell you, I don't think anyone's ever walked out of a presentation thinking, you know what? If that presenter just would have had one more PowerPoint slide, he would have had me. It's never been said in the history of the world. But that being said, it's just like using notes. If it helps you connect and it helps the flow and it helps you engage the audience, I say go ahead and use it. It's when it starts to detract from your message, when it can be distracting, that's when you want to back off a little bit. But that's where the rehearsal comes in, and we can talk about that more in a bit. I have a whole presentation I give just on practice, and again, if we want to touch on that, we can touch.
Yeah, so
and you mentioned also too many bullet points. Correct.
Yeah, actually, there's a book out. It's called The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs. And if you ever notice a Apple keynote, if there's a reason to have a bullet point, it is another slide. There's only like one image and a few words on every single slide. And if there's a bullet point, it's a brand new slide.
You're absolutely correct. And I love what your listener said, too many bullet points. That is probably the biggest issue with people is the slides are too wordy, they're too busy. And, as we know, people check out. A study was done in which, they wanted to gauge people's attention span. And right now it's about 8 seconds.
Yep, actually, yep.
A goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. So when we're presenting, we're dealing with the challenge of, the adult attention span is less than a goldfish. If your slides are too wordy or too busy, people are going to check out and they're going to go somewhere else.
Right. And so Brian just brought up a question, which was, why do they call it just by PowerPoint.
Well, if you've ever seen a speaker bomb or a professional comedian bomb, what they say is I'm dying up here, right? So if your PowerPoint isn't done well, or if you have way too many slides, or as your listener mentioned, too many bullet points, you're going to end up dying up there. It's going to be a slow, painful death on stage. That is for sure.
And so as far as preparing for the speech, I have a tendency of winging it. I will put together an outline of my 10 points I want to cover and practice in my head, because I really can't. I mean, if I'm in a room by myself, I feel awkward talking out loud. But as a professional speaker, and I've talked with a number of professional speakers and Hall of Fame speakers, they all practice. So how do you get over that fear of not only speaking in public, but speaking by yourself as well?
Sure. So we've got two topics here. We've got practice and overcoming nerves. So let's take a look at the practice piece. And I want to go back to an individual you mentioned just a few minutes ago, which is Steve Jobs, right? Arguably one of the greatest presenters in the history, of business presentations. And people, they just see his, 20 minutes to a half an hour of the product launches. I've done a lot of research on what makes him so great on stage, and he will spend, Bruce, up to 6 months preparing. They call it relentless. Obviously he's passed, but when he was speaking, relentless rehearsal. Again, 6 months for a half-hour product launch. That is why the greats make it look so easy. Now, you talk about winging it. Let's move it out of the public speaking realm into other professional industries. You would never expect a surgeon to come in and just wing it, when he's operating on your kidneys or your brain, right? Nor would you expect your attorney to just wing it. Same is true in our professions, right? No matter what it is that you do, when you wing it, people can tell. And I want to go back to, kind of the global audience. Our listeners, and again, whether it's a one-on-one communication, you're talking across, the aisle to somebody, or you're on stage, listeners are becoming more and more educated, more and more trained in the art of communication. If they can sense that you're dialing it in, that you're quote unquote winging it, and you're not prepared, you're going to lose their attention. Again, the attention span on average is 8 seconds when you calculate texting, emailing, YouTube, whatever it is. We are now in an attention economy. So if we go into an interaction unprepared, you're going to lose the other person that you're communicating with. It's just that simple. The bar has been raised. The old bar was keep people awake. The new bar now is keep people off their iPhones. And you have to go in prepared in order to do that. But I do want to, you talked about nerves, and I do want to talk about that. Mark Twain has said that there's two types of speakers: those that get nervous, and then those that lie about it, right? We all get nerves. We all get nervous at times. Mm-hmm. It's like anything else. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to become. You have to face the fears. One of the great things about Toastmasters is it allows the member to get a great amount of stage time. Again, you become numb to that emotion. But nerves, I want people to understand that they're actually not a bad thing. You talk to any performer, I don't care if it's a musician, a comedian, someone that's on stage, an actor, actress, the nerves actually are there to help the performance. They make you sharp. They get your body, with adrenaline. Now, too much obviously will hurt you, but you'll get the body full of adrenaline, ready for a great performance, and you get that energy. So the best tip I can give people without going too long on this topic is confidence comes from competence, and competence goes back to practice. If you want to have a better handle on your nerves, it simply comes down to rehearsal. And you mentioned that you rehearse in your head. A tip I would give, Bruce, is there's an ear audio mouth connection. Yep. The subconscious mind will remember the speech more if you speak it out loud. So there is value into rehearsing it with internally in your mind, but when you speak it out loud, you can hear actually how you're coming across, and you can adjust your tonality and your vocal. But I'll end with this. Hall of Fame speaker Patricia Fripp said it best, that the work is in the preparation. The performance, when we deliver the speech, is the relaxation. So the more you prepare, and 98% of the success of any speech happens before you ever take that stage. So I think I've made the point clear. Practice and rehearsal equals confidence, which in turn will give you competence.
And Patty's making a comment that's so interesting about practice. And great tips.
Thank you.
So I sent you this one video. I was going to pull it up here, but I didn't have it queued up. The difference between Eric with a K and Eric with a C. So what Eric with a C is kind and friendly. Eric with a K is what? Evil.
So Bruce, I told you what my wife had to say about that, Bruce. We'll keep that off the air. But no, I am with a C. I will take nice and friendly any day. That is that is for sure.
So again, there has been commonly said that people have a fear of public speaking, and that they would rather die than speak in public. But look at the alternative of speaking. So you talked about practice. And again, a lot of times when I tell people about their YouTube videos or going video for the first time, is the first 5, 10, 15 videos are going to be bad. I usually sometimes use more colorful language than that, but let's just say bad. And that is basically in the practice, in the rehearsal, in the memory, like a muscle memory, especially in your brain, is that once you get that content down, although right now what we're doing is kind of like what in Toastmasters is called table topic, where you're given, 1 minute of prep to talk about a subject, and you've got to wing it. How is that different from what we're doing actually right now? Because I'm asking you questions. 90% of these questions are not pre-prepared. We didn't set these up, although you did send me a bunch of questions to ask, and I may get to those or not.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bruce, I'm noticing what I wanted you to ask me, you're not, but this is good.
Okay, so what is your website? How do you find more about you? How do we hire you? And how do you make more money from this podcast or from this program? Is the question you have here on the sheet that you gave me.
We'll get to that in a minute. I do want to provide you. See, my business coaches tell me, Bruce, you got to add value, first before you can ask for a request. So we'll get to that. We'll add some more value, but I do want to talk about, fear. And this is fear, again, whether you're on stage or you're facing a fear of asking for a promotion. You're facing a fear of, trying something you've never done before. Your goal is to write a book. Your goal is to expand your business practice by 20% over the next year. Anytime you try something new, there's going to be fear. And I know we're going to talk about my book here in a little bit, but this is mentioned in my book, which is, there's a thought out there that failing is bad, and that's why people fear. Like when it comes to public speaking, people don't fear actually speaking in public because we do it every day. You and I are doing it right now. Every time you pick up the phone, you're speaking in public. When you're talking to your neighbor across the fence, you're speaking in public. The fear comes from people are fearful of the embarrassment that may happen from speaking in public. And that is a fear that permeates to a lot of things that we do, the fear of failure. In my book, I talk about risk. And I want to impart on your listeners that, risk is a part of life, right? You look at what we're going through right now, there's a risk every time we leave the house of getting infected. It's a risk that, right, it's up to the individual how much they want to take. But in order to grow, and I'm going to go back to public speaking and in a business sense, in order to grow, risk is required. There's no way around it. And the failure is a possibility. But you look at any successful person, they're not 100% successful. Look at Elon Musk. Right, he's failed his way to the top. Richard Branson failed his way to the top. Oprah Winfrey has failed her way. Oprah Winfrey was told You're not fit for television. She's a household name, probably the most famous, successful TV personality of all time. So again, when we talk about fear, public speaking, or in a business sense, we have to take risks. We have to face our fears. And the more that we do that, Bruce, the more we're going to overcome them and grow.
So I think the key of getting over that fear of failure is to have a strong support system. Somebody who can be behind you. In your cases, you had coaches, they are preparing you, but also in life, there's coaching that they've been there, they've seen it, they've got the t-shirt, and now they're passing their wisdom on to you. So I guess one way of getting over that fear is to see who's gone before you and to show you that the path is safe in some instances.
Without question. The mantra right now, which I believe in, is we're all in this together. Getting through the pandemic, it's true. And that is true anytime we're trying to move forward. So I have a couple chapters in my book, which is The Finer Things. It's a 52-week guide to living an inspired life. One of the chapters talks exactly about what you mentioned, which is having that support system. And I want to bring up the topic of encouragement. So there was a study that was done, and this goes to your question, Bruce, in which researchers, they wanted to predict people's ability to endure pain. So what they did was they had the participants take off their socks and shoes and stand in freezing ice cold buckets of water. And as they observed the participants, Bruce, they noticed that there was one factor and one factor alone that allowed certain people to be able to withstand twice as much pain as others. Now, when I talk about this in my keynotes, most people can't guess the answer, but it's this. They had someone standing right next to them, offering them words of encouragement, saying, you can do it. Yes, you can. Now, if you think about the power of that, and this goes back to your question, if we want to be twice as successful in what we're doing, hang around people that are going to encourage you. They're going to support you. They are going to tell you, yes, you can do that. You'll be twice as successful.
And actually, I was just on another program just before this one where they're talking about being tactically positive, which was actually a subject that Eric Bam has been accused of. He's like, and Eric...
Another Eric with a C, I might add.
Eric with a C, yes, he is. So he actually organized a group of, I guess, what we call mega minds to not only support each other, but encourage and inspire each other. And here's another person who's part of that mega mind group, Barry, is risk equals reward.
Listen.
And encouragement is important.
Absolutely. And I love mega minds, the mastermind groups. So I want to share with you another study. I'm big on research and supporting, kind of what I say through studies and research. But if you look at the most popular fish in aquariums, and this is, I don't know if you read in my intro, I'm John C. Maxwell Leadership Certified. He talks about this. But if you look at the most popular fish in aquariums, it's the shark. Because a shark has the ability to adapt to its environment. So you can take a baby shark that's only 6 inches long, put it into an aquarium, and it can become fully mature and still be only 6 inches long. Now, here's the great thing about what you mentioned, masterminds and master groups in the environment that people operate in. You take that same shark, Bruce, you release it into an open ocean, it will then grow to reach its full potential. So these mastermind groups and the mega groups that you talk about, they are the environment that we should be operating in, where you have like-minded individuals and a synergy is formed, and you have that 1 + 1 is 3, and we can reach our full potential.
Yeah, who is this guy? Actually, we do have one guy in our Megamind group who we refer to as a shark.
Okay.
And,
different connotations, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's a sales shark. And so, what is the next step? You're not publicly speaking. So how are you communicating? How are you getting your message out there? How are you surviving in this environment?
Yeah, I've had a lot of, like most people, I've had a lot of gigs that have been canceled for 2020. What I want to impart on people is to embrace the virtual environments. This is something, whether we like it or not, is going to be here. And, a lot of people, including myself, believe that virtual is going to be the new norm. So whether we're communicating again on stage or on a one-on-one environment, I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I had my annual, checkup with my doctor. It was virtual. He was on his iPhone. I was on my iPhone, basically, asking me questions, right? And that's the new norm. So whether we want to or not, we're going to have to adapt to learning the new technology, whether it be Zoom, StreamYard, all these different platforms. I mean, even TikTok. I mean, right? Whatever it may be, we have to continue to keep pace with the change in technology. Because I've been able, Bruce, to pick up some MC gigs virtual. A lot of conferences are now switching to the virtual platform. But I think I'd be doing your listeners a disservice if I didn't impart the importance of adapting a virtual platform for your own business to be able to engage, communicate, and continue to connect, with your customers and your clients. Again, I'm in the financial planning world, for the day job. I know several financial advisors who have moved their entire practice virtual, 100%. They've sold all their retail space. They are now meeting people 100%. Now, I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but that's kind of the trend that we're moving toward.
So didn't you have a speech in Europe earlier this year? Or am I confusing with somebody else?
Nope. That was back in 2015 as I was preparing for the World. So I've been to the World Championship twice in 2015 and 2018. I happened to be on a business trip out in Ireland, across the pond. And I took the opportunity to speak out there to the folks out in Ireland. And, it's interesting talking to a global audience. I talked about having a universal message. It is very important that the messages that we're imparting are not only crystal clear, but also universal. We're becoming more and more diverse, more and more global. So as we continue to communicate to clients, customers, we always have to remember it's not about us, right? The audience and listener only cares about one person, and that is themselves, which is the way it should be. So we need to make sure that the messages that we're getting across is universal and hits home to our audience.
So now you can actually reach that the European audience without even leaving that fabulous living room you've got there.
Right, yeah, correct. Which I want to thank you, Bruce, for letting me borrow this fabulous background. So, to answer your question more specifically, I've had a chance to train virtually out in Scotland. I'm going to be speaking in the Philippines pretty soon. I had a chance to speak out in California, a few other places, Singapore. So again, this would not be possible without the virtual environment. And again, I'm trying to embrace it as much as I can. And I think everybody should as well. And
one last thing before we wrap this up is how different is it presenting virtually? Because I know you did a something for Toastmasters earlier this year virtually. And I know in some, I'll give one secret away. You put your notes up on the screen right next to your camera, so that you didn't have to memorize everything. But again, there is an adaptation of being live in person where they see your whole body. You're walking around a big stage, and then being in a box with good audio. Because I know some people, and I've seen this a lot, is they're way back here, and their camera's over there, and the microphone's over there. And it sounds horrendous. How are you adapting to that? Because you can't see your entire body from here, but you can from there.
Correct. Well, first, you need to have a good AV guy, which is you, Bruce. I'll give you a quick plug. So if you need equipment, training on lighting or whatever it may be, or how to do virtual, talk with Bruce from the technical standpoint. From a delivery standpoint, without question, people will forgive sketchy video, but they will not forgive sketchy audio. If you have bad audio, people will tune out super fast. But it is critical that we stay engaging in a virtual environment. There are too many distractions. You've got the barking dog, the crying baby. You've got windows open on your computer. It is critical, again, to change the stimuli for your listener every 3 to 4 minutes. What do I mean by that? Have a video, poll the audience, engage them through rhetorical questions, show pictures. Storytelling is, and again, that's in person or in a virtual environment. You've got to have engaging stories. They cut through, the conscious mind, the resistance to a subconscious level. This goes back to practice. We've got to get on. We've got to use the software. We have to continue to practice over and over. Toastmasters is a great platform to practice, but you got to get good. Watch people that are good and bad in the virtual environment, so we know what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, it always feels better to learn from other people's mistakes.
It feels a lot better too. Yes. That's what I'm saying. You got to look at the bad, so see what you don't like, and look what you do like, and then adapt that to your own personality.
So here's a real quick shameless plug from Brian, because Brian's also in the AV industry, although he does more mega conferences where we do mostly smaller productions.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, Bruce, pick a B, right? Pick a B that can help you out.
So is there anything else that we want to cover? Any last minute calls to action? Any advice that you have?
Yeah, my advice would be this: communication. And I spoke for 6 years as a teacher at Lake Forest Graduate School of Management. And I taught an executive 101 communication class. So it was all business professionals. The message of that class that I would impart is the ability to verbally persuade or inform a group of people, whether it's 2, 20, or 2,000, in my opinion, is the single most critical skill that you can have on a personal and a professional basis, period. Because again, we're in an attention economy. We have to be able to grab people's attention and then keep it. So whatever you need to do, read books, practice, join Toastmasters, get them, join the mastermind, continue to work on your communication ability in an in-person environment, in a virtual environment, the social media environment. I mean, come on, we don't need to go into, how much social media has impacted the business world and everything else, but we have to stay up, we have to stay current, because if not, unfortunately, we're going to be left behind, and nobody wants that to happen.
Excellent. Thank you. So here's one way of contacting Eric. He's got a website, Inspired to Empower, where you work with other speakers, you train and help. Is that correct?
Yep. So if you're looking for speech coaching, love to hear from you. If you're looking for an MC in a virtual environment or a regular environment, again, I do a lot of MC work. I do keynote speeches as well. And basically anything from a communication standpoint, I love to hear from you. And, just connect on maybe we can have some referrals, whatever. Absolutely. So my list of services is on it. And I do want to do a shameless plug on my book. Again, so I've got a video log, which is the finer things, strategies to live an inspired life. I put that out once a week on Facebook. But the book's coming up, and it's going to be coming out, released in 2021, which again is a 52-week guide to living an inspired life. Please check that out. I'll sign a copy for you, but that is going to address obviously how to stay inspired, but especially given the COVID environment, emotional resilience is something that we all have to work on. The mental game now is so critical to being successful, to living an inspired life. And I talk about that obviously at great length in the book, but I think it can help a lot of people.
Thank you very much. So we have some last comments. Barry does start with a B also.
First and last name Barry starts with a B.
Yeah.
First and last name, B squared.
And MC is a great way to up-level virtual element. event. And we got to thank you, Eric with a C.
Appreciate it, JR and Brian and everybody.
Great. Thanks all for joining us. This was actually our premiere episode streaming live to LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, follow either of us or ask us to connect with you, Eric or Bruce. I'm pretty sure we're the only Eric Feinendegen and Bruce Himmelblau on the platform, so you won't get confused at all with that.
Bruce, thanks again for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Great.
And thanks to your listeners as well.
Great. And then for those people on YouTube, you're going to get this little banner here. And I'm going to point this way to our YouTube channels here on Eric's channel and my channel, and then another suggested video. And this is for the YouTube people. So if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, it's just going to be a blank screen, but you can print that out and draw on it if you'd like.